Good morning. Thank you guys so much for being here today. My name is Marissa Martinez, and I'm the campaign manager for Bob Flanders. Before we dive into everything, I'd like to just take a moment and thank some individuals for being here with us. Brandon Bell, the Rhode Island GOP chairman, thank you for being here. Representative Mike Chippendale, thank you as well. Ken Mendoza, thank you. Sherry Roberts. And City Councilman Jim Canoyer and John Breen, thank you. To start things off, I would like to introduce Patrick Coley.
We start off with a technical problem. Well, it begins today. It begins right now. It begins here. And I want to thank everybody for your enthusiasm. And every time that somebody's asked to introduce somebody, they say, our guest of honor today needs no introduction. And then they proceed to introduce him or her. Well, Bob Flanders needs an introduction. Not because we don't know what he stands for, but he needs an introduction to every voter, every man, woman, every concerned citizen of the state of Rhode Island for the next 12 months. And that's our job, and that job starts today. And the reason I'm up here today is to talk to all of us here about who Bob Flanders is and what he represents. He's a graduate of Brown University, but he didn't get to Brown like a lot of people got to Brown. He got to Brown as the oldest of 7 children from a tough family where they worked hard and he took responsibility, and his parents worked every day to put food on the table, and he worked himself to Brown on an athletic scholarship. He was both quarterback and the captain of the baseball team. He worked hard for 4 years with academic honors. He graduated Phi Beta Kappa, and when he graduated, he was offered a contract by the Detroit Tigers. So I started off by saying, I know the Red Sox have made 2 big mistakes. Number 1 is they traded Babe Ruth. The second one is they didn't draft Bob Flanders. So that was all right there. But he was drafted, and he was a first-round draft pick, and his team was called the Harvard Law School. He spent 3 years at Harvard. He also earned honors there. And when he left Harvard, he decided to come back to Rhode Island because this is where he wanted to be. These are the people that he met, and these are the people with whom he wanted to spend his time. And he joined and became a partner of one of our finest law firms here in Rhode Island. But it wasn't just his work that kept him here in Rhode Island. He began a life of service very quickly as he came back from school. He became a city council, a councilman in Barrington, 2 terms. He was legal counsel for the city of Barrington. He got involved right away in a number of issues. A very successful law firm. And then in 1996, he was appointed to the Supreme Court. So I tell people it's not Judge Flanders, it's Justice Flanders as a Supreme Court. And he spent 8 years on the Supreme Court, and he authored over 400 decisions that scoped from the commercial to various litigants. In every possible instance, he exercised his authority and his breadth of intelligence. After he left the bench, he came back into private practice, but he didn't just come back into private practice, he stayed in service. He was appointed to the Board of Regents for elementary, primary, and secondary education, and he brought in these piloted a program for pre-K program. It's for pre-K kids. It's always about people who work hard and strive and want to get ahead, and education is an important component. In 2011, he was appointed to come here to Central Falls. Not without controversy as we all walked in, but this city was broke. And they needed somebody who could consult with the different constituents and put it back together. And the person that put it back together was Justice Bob Flanders. And what he did was just short of remarkable. Not everybody agreed with him, but it was a consensual agreement. He saved them $6 million in the first year and a $30 million savings over the next 5 or 6 years. The economic health, the financial health of the city of Central Falls is because of the work that Bob Flanders did. So he comes to us today with 30 years of experience, with accomplishment, with understanding about people and who we are and what we need. This is no small task that we have in front of us beginning today. When I said that Bob doesn't need an introduction except the introduction he just got was, once again, let me go back. Every one of us in this room needs to introduce Bob to everybody that we know. Because next year will not be easy. Day after day, you slog through this campaign, and what you get is, in these extraordinary times, you need an extraordinary man, and that extraordinary man is Bob Flanders. Thank you very much.
And next, I'd like to introduce Dick McAdams.
Good morning. My name is Richard McAdams, and it's my pleasure to be here today to support my very good and long-standing friend Bob Flanders in his quest to become a United States Senator from Rhode Island. Bob asked me if I would say a few words today, and I'm more than happy to do so. Bob and I first met 50 years ago this fall when we were freshmen at Brown University. Many of you here today have known Bob and his wife Ann for many years. Some of you have known Bob and Ann for a far shorter time, and some of you may not know Bob at all, but you are here to support his candidacy. The one thing I hope to accomplish today is to let everyone in this room and everyone in Rhode Island know that Bob and Ann come from family backgrounds that are typical of many Rhode Islanders. Nothing that Bob has accomplished professionally, and nothing that he and Ann have attained as a family, has been by way of inheritance or entitlement. Bob's success has come from his American middle-class roots and values, his great parents, their value of education, and his hard work. Many of you here call Bob Judge, rather than by his name. As a sign of respect, that is readily understandable, but in some ways it creates an artificial barrier and can prevent a person, especially a stranger, from relating to him as another regular guy. I want to speak to you as his friend of 50 years, who knows him as that regular guy, with a great sense of humor and the ability to laugh at himself. Bob grew up in a 2-bedroom house in Massapequa, Long Island, the oldest of 7 children, 5 sisters and 1 brother. He was fortunate to have loving parents who knew the value of education and hard work. Bob's dad started his working career as a union steward for a military contractor, and later became a salesman in the food service industry. After raising her family to, after raising her family to school age, Bob's mom worked in the fast food business, managing a restaurant. As one can only imagine, home life was hectic, but rooted in traditional 50s and 60s values. Bob's parents taught him and his siblings the importance of individual responsibility and hard work. Bob and I became friends in the fall of 1967, rooming near each other during freshman year. Later that spring, we became baseball teammates and remained so for 4 years. Throughout his 4 years at Brown, Bob excelled as a student athlete, playing 4 years of football and baseball, serving as a tri-captain of the baseball team in our senior year. Academically, he earned a Phi Beta Kappa Ki. Bob's greatest fortune occurred in 1971 when he graduated from college and married Ann. He went on to receive his law degree from Harvard University in 1974. While married in law school and during the summer months, he continued a professional baseball career, playing Double-A baseball in the Detroit Tigers organization. After graduation from law school in 1974, a brief legal stint followed in New York City. In 1975, Bob and Ann moved back to Rhode Island, and he joined the law firm of Edwards and Angel. In 1986, Bob formed his own law firm, Flanders and Medeiros, where, along with serving as Governor Bruce Sunland's personal legal counsel, he practiced law until Governor Lincoln Almond appointed him in 1996 to the Rhode Island Supreme Court as an Associate Justice, where he served for 8 years. In 2004, Bob returned to private practice and is now a partner at Wayland, Carenti, Flanders, Kinder, and Sickett. Interspersed along the way, Bob and Ann became parents to daughters Danielle and Heather and son Zachary. They are now Grandpa Bob and Granny Annie to 4 beautiful grandchildren. I've skipped a lot of things that occurred over a 50-year journey, but can assure you there is nothing which prevents me from giving Bob my complete and wholehearted support. And for me, that is important. Given his background and upbringing, Bob would never think to, let alone actually say, as did Rhode Island's sitting senator so condescendingly, that he was, quote, trained and basically bred, close quote, to run for office. Think about that statement for a minute. I guess it was good that let them eat cake, it was already taken. But who would think that, let alone say that? How much empathy can a person have for the average Rhode Islander? Such a person, no matter how well-intentioned, has no clue about the life of the ordinary Rhode Islander. Today, too many Rhode Islanders above and below the poverty line live from paycheck to paycheck, while the Washington elite live from party to party. And that explains why the sitting Senator Bob seeks to unseat has accomplished so little for the ordinary Rhode Islander over the last 11 years. While the sitting senator bloviates on national TV about the latest liberal or progressive pet project, Rhode Islanders languish in anguish. With Republicans in control of Congress and the White House, Rhode Island's sitting senator is on the outside looking in, nose pressed up against the window, with no chance of getting anything done for Rhode Island. Unlike our sitting senator's formative, elite, and out-of-touch background of privilege and entitlement, there is no posh pedigree in Bob's background. While our sitting senator was learning to ride polo ponies during his summers, Bob was playing baseball and football, hoping to earn a college scholarship, and doing menial jobs a middle-class kid does to save for college and help his parents pay the household expenses. Many of you may not know that Bob ran successfully for public office previously. From 1982 to 1986, Bob served as a town councilman in Barrington for 2 terms. And Bob is an untiring campaigner. I remember Bob telling me how he had walked the streets of Barrington knocking on hundreds of doors. At the end of one tiring day in 1981, he knocked on a door. A nice older gentleman answered. After a brief conversation, the old man said, "I like what you have to say, wish you luck, but I'm not going to vote for you." Bob looked at him perplexed and disappointed. "Why not?" asked Bob. Man pointed to a marker about 50 yards away and said, "The Barrington town line is over there." You're in East Providence. Cheer up, Bob. During this campaign, you can go anywhere in the state you want. Over my 50-year friendship with Bob, I have come to know him as a great teammate and friend, an intelligent, compassionate, and thoughtful problem solver, a good listener with an even temperament, a person with a great sense of humor, a loyal husband, and a loving father and grandfather. Bob will listen to, not lecture us. And all of that counts because, in my experience, an election many times comes down to which candidate is more likable. Well, one thing I can say with certainty is this: everyone I know would rather have a beer with Bob than a Chardonnay with Sheldon. Thank you.
And next, I'd like to introduce Alan Hasenfeld.
I thought this morning I was supposed to be giving you the 10 best toys for Christmas, because when you leave after you put the sign up on your lawn, just remember there are only 39 more shopping days. It's an honor to be here today. There's an Italian proverb, from listening comes wisdom, from speaking, repentance. So I will be short. I have known Bob Flanders for many, many years, even before he became a distinguished judge on our state's highest court, fighting different battles shoulder to shoulder to improve our special state of Rhode Island. There are few I know who are willing to fight for justice and the embetterment of all of our people, no matter the personal toll it exacts. He truly is a man of highest integrity, character, intelligence, and conviction. His greatest weakness? His tennis game. I could talk all day about that, but I won't. Now, I don't take this introduction lightly. I rarely get involved in politics, sometimes issues, but I believe Washington is in turmoil now, and we need a senator who can help us get back on track towards building a better and more moral America. And for those in the audience, I tell you this, now's the time to put country and state before party, and I believe Bob Flanders will do that. I'm not going to use some cliches that this is the most important election of our lifetime. However, what I will say is that these truly are trying times. I call it the twilight zone. We don't know what is going to happen from one day to the next. There is a lack of certainty, a lack of execution, a lack of high moral purpose. It's times like these where we say to ourselves, why can't we get qualified candidates to run for office? Why can't we get smart, driven, talented people to fight for Rhode Island? Why can we not get anything done? Well, that time has ended. We have found our candidate, and his name is Bob Flanders. It's not every day we find such a superbly well-rounded candidate who is willing to put their private life on hold for public service. In closing, I have no doubt in my mind that Bob will do what is best for Rhode Island. He is a problem solver, and above all, a man of action. He'll go to Washington and get things done, and that is what we as Americans need right now. It's funny, there is a quote that I use a lot from Will Rogers. And Will Rogers once wrote, "The difference between a politician and a statesman is that a politician thinks of the next election. A statesman thinks of the next generation." Bob Flanders is a statesman. So today, I'm asking all Rhode Islanders, Democrats, Independents, and Republicans, to send statesman Bob Flanders to Washington so our families and generations beyond will have a brighter future. Maybe David Gergen was writing of Bob when he said, "Whatever you do, Bob, do with integrity. Wherever you go, go as a leader. Whomever you serve, serve with caring. Whenever you dream, dream with all and never ever give up." Ladies and gentlemen, I give you statesman Bob Flanders.
Thank you, Alan, Patrick, Dick, for those wonderful, wonderful introductions. And thank you all for coming here today. It's so great to see such a wonderful turnout. And it's terrific to see old friends meet new folks and to have this send-off here today. I want to just take a moment to acknowledge someone who is, well, the dearest person in my life. That's my wife, Ann. We've been married 46 years with 3 children, 4 grandchildren, and she's my best asset in this campaign. But also, I've got my son Zach, who is also up here, who's helping me. Zach is doing a terrific job working with the campaign, and many of you have talked to him in various contexts for meetings and such. So thank you, Zach. Well, it's time to end the suspense. I'm here today to announce my candidacy for election to the United States Senate. So why am I doing this? Why at this stage in my life, when I could be retiring, when I could be spending more time with my family and grandchildren, why am I putting myself and my family through the rigors of a difficult campaign and all that that entails? Recently, I came across a quote from Nelson Mandela, who said, "There's no passion in playing small. Never settle for a life less impactful than you're capable of leading." That was so inspiring to me. And I want to take that passion and take that life of impact on the campaign trail. The reason I'm doing this is, like many of you, I'm dissatisfied with the hyper-partisanship that we see down in Washington, D.C. these days. The entrenched politicians who are there. There's too much finger pointing and not enough handshaking going on. We need problem solvers. Men and women who have demonstrated that they can bring diverse factions together and reach compromise solutions. Enough of this partisan stuff where if one side proposes it, then the other side is opposed to it and vice versa. Because it leads to stasis, it leads to inaction, it leads to nothing getting done when we need and hope for better solutions to the problems that plague us. My entire professional life has been devoted to problem solving. And every job that you heard that I've held, that's been the essence of what I've done. Whether it's as a lawyer for over 40 years in private practice, as a judge, as the head of the Board of Regents for elementary and secondary education, as a town councilman, as counsel to various governors, and as the receiver here in Central Falls, where we're gathered here today. Problem solving, that's what it takes. It takes people willing to bring disparate sides together and find a solution to the issues that are plaguing us. And Central Falls obviously is a case study in problem solving. This city was in dire straits. It was ready to default on its obligations, and we needed to find a way out of the problem of defaulting. And so I had to meet with all the diverse stakeholders, the retirees, the unions, listen to their concerns, figure out how can we somehow make the best of a very bad situation where they were running a $6 million operating deficit every year on a very limited budget. And what we did is we put together a consensual plan, listened, were transparent, collaborated with the various folks that were going to be affected, and presented a consensual plan of debt adjustment and recovery for this city. That means that every stakeholder, the retirees, the unions, and there were 3 of them, the firefighters, the police, and the municipal unions, they all agreed to the plan. And we presented it to the judge, and in 13 or 14 months, we were in and out of the bankruptcy restructuring process. And today, this city is being hailed as the comeback city of Rhode Island, because they followed the plan of debt adjustment, and they're now proud to say that they've had the first surplus in many, many years. So the lessons of Central Falls is that that kind of approach, that collaborative, problem-solving approach, needs to travel to Washington, D.C. We need folks who can find solutions to all the issues that we're facing, and God knows they're troublesome. We've got healthcare problems, we've got immigration, infrastructure, tax relief. All of these issues are crying out for compromises and for solutions that will help the average working family in Rhode Island. Yes, I'm running as a Republican, but I'm an independent-minded Republican. I'm going to call balls and strikes on issues. I'm not just going to reflexively follow whatever the president or the Senate leadership or anybody else says. My mantra and my lodestar is going to be what's right for middle-class working families here in Rhode Island and for small businesses in the state. That's going to be the touchstone. And I have a bias for action and results, achievement-oriented, not empty rhetoric. That's so important because we've heard all of the bloviating and the rhetoric, but it's results. And the great thing about Rhode Island, the reason I'm a Rhode Islander by choice, not by birth, but by choice, to have my entire professional career here, is this is a state where one person can make a difference. And that's going to be true in Washington as well. Make a difference for the people here who are hurting the most and need help, as well as our businesses and others. You've heard about my personal background, which is very different from our incumbent senator, who I'll be challenging. I don't come from privilege and wealth. I've had to come from a background where I've had to work in a lot of manual labor jobs in order to pay for my education and to get spending money for myself. All throughout high school, college, and even law school, I worked in jobs that average Rhode Islanders can relate to. I was a garbage man in my hometown. I worked as a floor sweeper, a bagger in a mattress factory. I was a dishwasher. I took that job when I was at Brown. You may remember at the time, Wheeler was the Wheeler School for Girls. Silly me, I thought by taking that job it might improve my dating life. No chance. But the point is that I worked in these things and in these types of employments, and I learned what it means to work by the sweat of one's brow. It's hard work for minimum or little wages. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is something I can identify with. My parents lived paycheck to paycheck. We were not wealthy. I went to Brown on a financial aid scholarship and had to work as part of that. So those experiences have never left me. I know what that's like, and I can identify with folks who have had to struggle. So it's time, ladies and gentlemen, to take back our federal government and our Senate from the lifetime politicians, the entrenched, dyed-in-the-wool partisans who are unfortunately now ruling the roost down there. The incumbent senator is the 9th most partisan senator in Congress, in the Senate. It's time to send Silver Spoon Sheldon home. It's time to stick a fork in all the arrogance, the prosecutorial pomposity, and the climate change bullion that have characterized his tenure. It's time, ladies and gentlemen, for a climate change in Washington, D.C. This campaign is going to be about a better tomorrow for our children and grandchildren. We want a place in Rhode Island so our kids don't have to leave this state to get decent jobs or an education. We want a place where folks here can thrive and not empty out Rhode Island into a shell of what it once used to be. It's about a healthier, cleaner, more prosperous Rhode Island so that all of us can thrive. But I need your help, as you heard. I need every one of you to help in all the ways that you can, to introduce me to folks who can introduce me to their friends. It's going to be an expensive campaign. The incumbent has all the PAC money in the world to support his campaign. I have to start basically from scratch. And I need grassroots support from all of you to make it happen. So let's start today to make it happen. Let's start here and now to resolve that this campaign will be successful. We're here in Central Falls because I'm going to go out and ask for every Rhode Islander's vote. I'm going to go to Central Falls and Woonsocket and Coventry and Little Compton. I'm going to be traveling this state, and there's no Rhode Islander whose vote I'm not going to be seeking. But I need your help to make it happen. I need your support, both financially and otherwise, and I need your encouragement. But together, we can make this happen. This is a doable race, and I'm going to be successful with you at my back. So let's go out today and do it. Let's get it done.